Fallout 4 is, so far, and undoubtedly will remain, the biggest release of 2015. After 7 years in development, the latest installment of Bethesda's popular post-apocalyptic RPG franchise launched with profits of $750 million, and Pornhub announced a 10% traffic drop on launch day. So with that, this is going to be my biggest review ever. I'm splitting it into two, because there's so much to cover. I'm Alana, welcome to Button Bash. Today we're going to be talking about Fallout 4's world, exploration, and level system. It can't be denied that Fallout 4 feels incredibly familiar. It takes place 10 years after the events of Fallout 3 and similarly sets players loose in a Mad Max-style world full of mutated monstrosities and decaying buildings, with a huge amount of choice regarding where to go and what to do. Because of the way Fallout's timeline works, though, American culture never evolved past the almost eerily conservative optimism of the 1950s, with a beautiful soundtrack to go with it, including The Inkspots, Billie Holiday, and Roy Brown. Technology has evolved beyond that point, though, in its own unique way. Computers are still kind of clunky and pixelated things, but cold fusion, on the other hand, is very real and powers weapons, cars, and your sweet Iron Man-like power armor. So to just jump back a little bit, immediately after creating your character, the bombs go off. Luckily, you and your family have access to a survival vault, Vault 111, and after frantically rushing inside just as the cloud of an explosion starts to barrel towards you, you're basically kind of tricked into being cryogenically frozen as part of an experiment. I'm going to avoid any spoilers here, but basically when you wake up 200 years later, people have died, everything is tattered, and you're sent off to chase a missing family member. That intro is very rushed and doesn't really give you much of an opportunity to attach yourself to the family who are very clearly intended to be your motive in the main story. But while it's a shame, my motive very quickly rooted itself in exploring everything I possibly could in this foreign version of Boston. The narrative, while it is stronger than Fallout 3's, doesn't matter in comparison to finding out what's left of Boston, who's there, and how the city has tried to piece itself together after a massive nuclear explosion 200 years prior. And it's an absolute treat to explore. The map is littered with surprises and secrets, each which helps to build a genuinely culturally rich world. But beyond that, it's also incredibly hostile and harsh, and a much harder game than Fallout 3 was, but to me this only really adds to the appeal of exploration. The tension of trying to get to safety or scavenge for a stim pack when supplies are low and you've just encountered a deathclaw unexpectedly is palpable. It also makes the kind of messy perk system feel a little more important every single time you level up. Your success in combat seems to be dictated by how thorough you are in looting and your skill tree, though they aren't actually called skills anymore. You start the game by placing stats in special abilities: strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, and luck, each which will give you different benefits. Leveling up a specific special skill will give you more perks that are relevant to that ability and in the long run affects what you can do. For example, lots of charisma will let you smooth talk your way out of some potentially sticky situations. The system makes sense, but it feels a lot like a simplified version of Fallout 3's level system, and initially it feels very front-loaded, sort of forcing you to make long-term decisions very early on in the game when you might not know how things function. I found it's also just laid out in the UI in a really messy way. I was never really excited about leveling up, whereas in Fallout 3 I usually couldn't wait to unlock the next cool perk. That said, after 60 hours or so of Fallout 4, you'll appreciate how hard it encourages you to specialize in very specific things, kind of turning your character into this interesting balancing act. And that balancing act can affect you in absolutely every way, including how you approach combat, which we'll be talking about in part 2 of my Fallout review, which I know was an amazing segue into ending this episode. I'm a professional. Stay tuned for part 2 of my Fallout 4 review coming up next on Button Bash. I'm Alana, thanks for watching.